The subject of the grandparent-grandchild relationship is of interest to each and every one of us in this room. Some of you are grandparents and you have firsthand knowledge of what a joy that relationship can bring. Others of us in the room might be more interested in learning about the grandparent-grandchild relationship with regards to future mental health of our children. We now live in a society that is less and less attached to the idea of maintaining societal roles. For example, some might argue that a healthy nuclear family these days can consist of 2 gay fathers or 2 lesbian mothers. However, I'm going to argue this evening that the traditional role of grandparent should remain as such. It is a traditional role best kept as is, both for the sake of the grandparents and the grandchildren. Let's define quickly what I mean. Oh, actually, let's go ahead and go over first what we're going to be going over tonight. We're going to talk about how the grandparent in a traditional role fosters emotional stability for grandchildren and is in turn provided with a rewarding relationship. An untraditional role fulfilled by a grandparent fosters emotional instability for those grandparents and is often a detrimental relationship for grandchildren. So now beginning with the definition, I'm going to read the definition by Rita Glass, my interviewee subject for this class. And she defined the traditional role of grandparent as being a person with just few enough responsibilities in their life and in their relationship to their grandchild, that they have the time to simply sit and listen and show them unconditional love. You can imagine that this is an extremely beneficial relationship to children, which is exactly what most surveys on this topic show. This survey, for example, from a 2007 study, compared the levels of intimacy between grandparents and grandchildren with the correlational mental health of those same grandchildren. And in all 3 comparative studies, the children's depressive symptoms decreased considerably as their intimacy rate with their grandparents increased. And just to make this clear, this is children in single-parent households. This is children from 2-parent or intact households, and the green line represents children in step-family households. A later 2009 study found similar trends. This one compared the level of involvement of grandparents with problems amongst peers as experienced by grandchildren and total difficulty as was defined by the researchers in this study. And again, we find that the higher level of involvement of grandparents correlates directly with lower problems amongst peers with these grandchildren and lower total or overall difficulty. If you take a further look at this set of research, the researchers picked up on the fact that it appeared as if the grandparent intimacy has its biggest effect on, or is most important to, children from single, that would be this one, and children being raised in step-parent households. And they realized after looking into this that there are 2 contributing factors to a grandparent's ability to fulfill their traditional role. And those 2 contributing factors tend to be a grandparent's distance from home life and a grandparent being seen as a safe familial status. So really what this means is that when home life is difficult, as may be the case in some of these situations, grandchildren tend to use their grandparents as an important out-of-the-house support network. And similarly, the familial status of a grandparent makes them safe in a way that an adult non-family member simply can't be. So we've just explored this relationship from the grandchild's perspective. We're going to quickly move on to exploring it from a grandparent's perspective. A 2000 study done in 2000 surveyed grandparents in a very roundabout way about what was most rewarding to them about their relationship with their grandchild. And again, this being done in a roundabout way, they discovered that grandparents with a higher intimacy level with their grandchildren reported that their relationship was extremely rewarding, whereas grandparents with a lower intimacy level reported that simply being a grandparent was extremely rewarding, just kind of the fact of. In both of those situations, there was a high rewards level, And then another interesting thing was picked up on by these researchers. They realized that no matter the intimacy level, there was one thing that always occurred across the board. The satisfaction level, or the reported satisfaction level of a grandparent, tended to decline as the grandparents reported more of an authority role in their grandchildren's, in the relationship with their grandchildren. So I'm going to say that again and repeat that, because this is kind of an important turning point in the discussion. No matter the intimacy level in this study, the grandparents' growing sense of dissatisfaction as a grandparent directly correlated with their increasing role as an authoritative figure. And this moves us into the latter part of the discussion here about grandparents fulfilling an untraditional role. And by untraditional role, I mean grandparents moving into the role of being a sole caretaker, or moving from being a grandparent into being a parent, really, for their grandchildren. In 2006, an online survey of grandmas, the sole caretaker grandmas reported overall lower satisfaction and success scores than their traditional counterparts. A similar study in 2005, this one of sole caretaker grandfathers, reported that 81% of the respondents in this study reported feeling powerless in light of their new situation. And of those 81%, most of them believed that they would continue to feel powerless throughout their entire parental or grandparental career. And this just goes to show that the non-traditional role of grandparent does not tend to be a healthy one for the grandparents. So that begs the question, could it be a healthy one for the grandchildren still? And surveys say no. A 2006 double-blind study surveyed teachers on this subject. And the study was the perceptions of the emotional and behavioral functionings of children raised by grandparents. It being a double-blind study, the grandparents that were involved in talking about their home life and the teachers that were being surveyed about the children didn't necessarily know what the study was being conducted on. And in this way, the researchers hoped to gather more unbiased information. The results were undeniable. Grandparents or grandchildren raised by grandparents evidenced significantly greater levels of emotional and behavioral problems than their counterparts or children from intact homes. In conclusion, I think it's fair to state that the traditional grandparent, as defined by Rita, is the type of grandparent that we should all one day strive to be, or at least encourage our parents to be. Thank you all for your attention, and I will now open the floor to questions.